Alex, I was going to ask you, and I may know the answer to this, or I may not, because you mentioned love and philosophy. But the question is, what inspires you?
What inspires me?
In terms of inspiring your work to write.
Well, I'll make a preparatory statement here, saying that I believe that it is the muse, or one of the muses, that inspires all of us.
Okay.
Now it does that on a foundation, so it's just interesting that the muses, the 9 muses, and there were 2, I think, for poetry, but Errata, muse of poetry, were the children of Zeus and Menominee. And to me that means they're the children of the spirit, the great spirit, the divine spirit, playing on your memory. And spirit playing with the human memory gives birth through various different avenues to creative artistic expression. Now, for spirit to work on memory, there has to be either experience or knowledge in the mind which the spirit can draw on, and then give you, and you can learn the technology, the technique of poetry, which enhances it. You can learn form and rhythm and alliteration and all these other things. But for there to be substance, there has to be knowledge or depth of experience. And the kind of experiences and knowledge that inspire me, first of all, love.
Okay.
And that can be divine love or human love. And then nature, going out in nature, any of the wow things in life. So if you go out in nature and you're all in your head, that may give rise to expository writing, but not necessarily to poetry. But if you go out in nature with an open spirit and let it speak to you, then poetic writing is almost guaranteed. And then science. This is kind of interesting, but science and those things which stretch the mind to the point of wow, I think are inspirational. And I think it's good to learn the vocabulary. I think it's good to be able to combine the vocabulary of science and mythology. I think mythology is another area for inspiration. Anything that can take me to the point of wow. I go breathe, feel the love, live in the wow. And then you have the technology of creative expression to lead you into that. Depth psychology can give an understanding of the kind of archetypal things that, because for me, good poetry is not just academic or conscious. It's like turning the world inside out, breaking into the unconscious and subconscious roles where true consciousness lies. And poetry is an avenue to that.
Why does he remind me of Ram Dass? That was the wow. Feel the love, live in the wow. I like
Not
it.
just the now. Very good.
And the avenue into this through poetry. That's beautiful. Okay. Well, Craig, I wanted to ask you the same question. What inspires you to write and play music?
A lot of times it's the human condition and trying to understand and address the human condition. So I look at someone and I see this inconsistency or this consistency or whatever it might be, and it just takes me to a certain place. Also, of course, in nature, that's huge. And as Alex said, love, because even though I don't do the emphasis on love songs, I still think that love and caring about others is just so vitally important to the entire planet, to the way we live and the choices that we make. And so love, not just romantic love, but love in general, and caring about other people is inspiring.
Yes, and I was thinking about, because the next question has to do with themes in your work, and I was when I was looking at what kinds of themes come up in my work last night, I've looked at this before too, but love is one category. But the funny story, I think it's a funny story, in fact I'm going to write a poem about it, is that about a month ago I met some people for lunch that I hadn't seen for a long time that had retired from the college that I work at. And this one retiree, he had moved to Denmark. He married a woman there, and unfortunately she died. I mean, he's been there for years and years and years. And so he came back to the United States to take care of some business, and so we met for lunch. And so he'd been trying to keep track of me a little bit, and he ran into a mutual friend of ours that I was in a poetry group with, and he goes, well, how's Pamela? What's Pamela doing? Is she writing poetry? And our mutual friend Pete said, Pamela fell in love and her poetry went to hell. And I thought, what? I even brought some love poetry. I like my love poetry. So I just thought, wow, that's an interesting
Maybe
take.
a matter of opinion.
It could be a matter of opinion, because I think, I tend to write, it depends, kind of edgy poetry, and maybe that edge was softened, and I was kind of celebrating love, and he didn't find that particularly the best poetry for him. And so in terms of themes of writing, love is one of my themes, and inspired as well by that. But also politics, unfortunately or fortunately, and the environment and nature, as you mentioned. And then, so those are like 3 categories, but also like headlines in a paper will catch my eye, or a news story, and if I can't get it out of my head, I have to write about it. And one example was when the ex-boyfriend allegedly cooked his ex-girlfriend's dog. And I heard this, and I thought about it, and I read about it, and I thought, this is horrendous, so I wrote a poem about that. So things like that. So in terms of themes in your poetry, when you talk about inspiration, I mean, those are tied. Would you say that a lot of what you write about then, thematically, would be nature and love?
Mine, not so much. It's about, human connection and that sort of thing.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Because especially that was one thing that you said about working with the elderly, the stories that they shared.
Mm-hmm.
Alex, what about you?
I don't know if I would say that either. It's interesting because I think that if I were to choose, like, and say, well, what is it that is, the kind of theme is really a lot of times spirit, expressing itself, and seeking union, seeking ecstasy. There's an element there. And so that can be excited by all different kinds of things. Now, the path to heaven often leads through hell, and so the path to ecstasy often goes through the pits of despondency.
Yes.
So there's really a lot using material in the world to explore these kind of psychic themes.
Yes.